Hey everybody, it's John Scott here, your host, and I'm going solo on this episode to give my full review, as best as I possibly can, on the what was described as, of course, by the WWE and titled The Greatest Royal Rumble. All that plus a little bit more coming up on the show. Yes, so folks, I'm alone on this podcast, but hopefully I'm going to do a fairly decent job alone. My co-host, who's normally here, Matt Essex, he's away. He's doing a bit of house hunting at the moment, and a little bit of a busy time in his life going on, and I can totally sympathise with the struggles of a house hunt, believe me, folks. But yeah, we're going to get through this podcast on a solo effort. Obviously, if you want to email me in while I'm here, it's wrestleline@gmail.com. That's wrestleline@gmail.com. And yeah, I promised everybody we would be doing a review, and obviously I've had loads and loads of emails from plenty of our listeners from Saudi Arabia, actually, which really, really grateful for all the information you guys gave me, and all the photos, all the images I got was really, really cool, seeing all this stuff. Okay, I guess before I start the review of WWE's Greatest Royal Rumble, I'm going to address the elephant in the room, because I know if I don't go into it, after the podcast, after the episode's done, I know I'll get loads of listeners emailing me and why didn't you mention that? And with this podcast, myself and Matt, we try not to shy away from things that are very obvious, and we try and be transparent as possible when talking and delivering what we want to say on this podcast. So I don't want to make WrestleLine corporate and we can't talk about things. So obviously the elephant in the room, a lot of issues around this pay-per-view. Should it have happened? Shouldn't it have happened? Do you agree? Do you not agree? I don't want to personally dive into too much of it. I mean, personally, from my standpoint, I'll say this much, is that I totally disagree about the whole way that the women has been kind of almost isolated, that they couldn't travel there, and they wasn't allowed to come in and do their stuff. Now I know that WWE or Triple H has come out and he's sort of said about they're working towards that maybe in the latter years of this deal, but for me it's slightly disappointing, because on one hand you've got WWE, who are really engaged in this whole women's division and putting them over, and we've just signed Ronda Rousey. We've got Charlotte Flair, who probably you could argue had the best match of WrestleMania. So it was a little bit of a disappointment. Also, just in general, the whole kind of what WWE could do and couldn't do. A little bit, kind of disappointed, I guess. But from a business point of view, can you blame the WWE for doing this? Probably not. I mean, I think what it boils down to, people, is the money, and the money talks, and I think money definitely talked here. I think if you look at from the point of view of the UK, at least, which I can talk about, because I live here. We get WWE. We've had WWE progressing every year for the last 4 years in this country, and we've had extra shows laid on from the first ever NXT takeover that was here in London that my co-host was fortunate enough to go to, and we get we get them come over twice, maybe 3 times a year now, which is quite a big deal. However, we're in no way anywhere near getting our own pay-per-view. I know people often throw out, well, maybe we'll get SummerSlam back at Wembley, but like, trust me, that is so far off the radar in so many ways. And I think, from my point of view, just seeing this hard progression that we've had here, we've got the UK tournaments coming up that myself and Matt are actually going to be attending this year. And I know that they're putting a lot into that, but from the standpoint of, you know, trying to get these big events over here, to suddenly see that WWE have just kind of taken themselves to Saudi Arabia because they've been kind of bought, in a sense, is, I guess it kind of, you know, it kind of just shows you that, you know, business is business at the end of the day. And, you know, if it makes sense financially, then, you know, you're going to get that pay-per-view. But if you're not throwing money at it, then perhaps not. So I kind of feel a little bit, you know, disappointed, not just for me, but all the fans that turn out from the UK and other places probably around Europe that go to the WWE shows, go to these live shows, you know, Germany, you know, all across, wherever they go over Europe, and yet, you know, they kind of just turn up on Saudi Arabia's doorstep, and they're putting on this grand, or what they call the Greatest Royal Rumble, and you know, having all the big names show up, and it's a pay-per-view, and it's a different time slot, and, you know, you hear about all this stuff that they can't change the times to do a UK pay-per-view, and then all of a sudden this one comes up, and all of a sudden they are. So, yeah, you know, slightly different, varied views. Obviously, I'm happy for the Saudi Arabia fans that got the show. I've got loads of emails from you guys as well. I want to thank everybody that did that. And we do have a massive following here from that part of the world. So we're always grateful for that. I know that a few of the fans that emailed me were a little bit disappointed with their seats. The fact that, you know, they didn't get to be up and close as maybe they thought they would when you go to a live show. But, you know, I'm guessing that's because of the stadium seating. So, yeah, slightly mixed sort of reviews, I guess, around that, you know, of how it all kind of was coming across from the fans' point of view. But nonetheless, we got what we got. And, of course, this was titled The Greatest Royal Rumble, live from, you know, the King Abdullah International Stadium in Jeddah. And this is where it was all coming from. Now, we had like a real pointless kickoff show, and it was so... I mean, I don't know why on earth Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler actually travelled there. If it was just for that, I kind of feel bad for those guys, because it was like... I just don't understand. But anyway, they were there. You had Booker T just talking so much garbage. I couldn't stand him in this one. And Byron Saxton, you know, fairly decent job, but it was horrible. Some of this, I felt like Jim Ross was giving the expressions that I would have been if I was sitting next to Booker T. But yeah, you can read into that whatever you want to do. So yeah, I felt like it was a bit of a real sort of pointless kickoff show. There was no matches on it either. I believe from what I heard about the reports is that this was actually taped an hour or half hour actually before it went out live. So anyway, so cause I know a lot of people said, like, blimey, it got dark there fast, but that was why that they did that. So yeah, obviously got to talk about the stage, got to talk about the grandness of it, because obviously production-wise this was extremely very well done. I definitely will not be taking anything away from it there. Obviously the stageway looked really cool. I think from the crowd point of view, you know, where people were sitting, I mean, a massive gap between... Obviously, from what I understand, the royal family were there, and you know they didn't seem like they wanted anybody getting near them, and they really made a big point of showing that. I'm surprised WWE had that camera set up where you could just see those massive, great gaps. They normally wouldn't want to show that kind of thing. I'm surprised they did it, but they pulled out so many times for those distant shots, so that was interesting. And the only thing we did learn about on the kickoff show, or from anywhere else, is that we were going to get John Cena and Triple H go up first. They were going to be the first match out, and not a bad way to start. I know that they kept saying, it's an honour for John Cena and Triple H to do this, and etc. etc. So yeah, two guys that really, haven't haven't touched that much, to be honest, which is kind of crazy in the current scheme of things in WWE. But obviously, titles between them, unbelievable amount of titles, 14 and 16, just crazy amounts. And obviously, two, you could say the two biggest company guys they've got for sure, were going at it. The entrance is, really good, worked out fine. I felt like Cena was really super over. And I know that, like, a lot of the fans from America and the UK, like, they emailed me and they said this match was, like, really not that good and it was a bit stale. But actually, I didn't mind it because I felt like it was it's a little bit of. I tell you what it reminded me of. It reminded me of going to a live show. It reminded me of going to a house show, and it was more for the live audience. And that audience in Saudi Arabia, those fans, they bought into it. They liked the test of strength and stuff like that. And, the slow build to it. Like, they were really into it. So I think if you've got if you've got the fans, the crowd are like that hot into what you're into, I don't really necessarily think you have to go to, the normal traditional style of wrestling that we're perhaps used to seeing from these two guys. So I didn't really mind it. I did think it was. I felt like the length of it might have been a little bit too long for the style they were doing, but overall I didn't mind it. The match, I think it clocked at just under 16 minutes for this one as an opener. They certainly wanted to put something special on to begin with, and I felt like it was a decent opening. So yeah, and John Cena going over for me made perfect sense. Obviously, he's been on a bit of a not the greatest run of late, so really needed this victory. I liked the fact that after the match he kind of like spoke to the fans, and I know it might have come across a little bit cheesy to us over here, but like it was a nice touch that he did that, and kind of opened up about his current situation and all the rest of it. So it was a good match. I have no real problems with it. I like some of the stuff that they did in the match, and Triple H kind of really playing that villain very, very well. I was quite intrigued to see how the fans would react to Triple H, because I know that he can be popular at times, and I did think, like, when he was doing the entrance, he'd done like a real babyface style entrance. He wasn't coming out like the heel Triple H. And then I think once he heard the crowd reaction, he just kind of played the part of what the crowd basically were sending the message across to him. So he just kind of adapted and fitted into that role really nicely. So yeah, AA to win the match. For me, style wise, obviously we go out of 5. Obviously I'm out my co-host here. Not sure what he would have given this, but I would give this a solid 3.5, because again, it wasn't like a match that's going to be like remembered all year long. I know that they're two tremendously big names, but for me, it was 3.5. It certainly wasn't, below that. That's for sure, in my opinion. So yeah, the next match we get up, we get the Cruiserweight title, which finally gets defended on the main pay-per-view, I guess. That this is, and this was the WWE Cruiserweight Championship between Cedric Alexander and Kalisto, and yeah, again, a few people, they thought this match was a little bit like not to their best. Personally, I didn't really have much of a problem. I think I want to just say this much before I continue, because I feel like I'm going to be saying that a lot. That statement, that when I say I didn't expect any more, is that when I watched this show, I didn't watch it and I didn't compare it to like Wrestle Frickin' Mania, and I certainly wasn't comparing it to the normal WWE pay-per-views, because the big difference here is you've got to take a lot of things into consideration. A, that the WWE have not been in Saudi Arabia for, I think, 21 years. I think the last time they were there, you got that that famous, you get that clip on YouTube of Vader and Undertaker being interviewed. That's the last time WWE was there. It's like 1990.